My name is Alexander Dapol Silagusera, and I'm here to discuss radicalism, identity fusion theory. Radicalism. So first, let's define what is radicalism. Radicalism in political science, the term radicalism is the belief that society needs to be changed, and that this change are only possible through revolutionary means. Radicalism came from the Latin word radix, and the original meaning of radicalism is to give grounds to its supporter to state that they seek no harm but aim to change some social phenomena. At the present time, the word radicalism means a way of thinking and associated behavior model, characterized by the following. It was according to Newman 2003. First is fundamentalism. Fundamentalism, in this, they strictly believe in what is stated on the doctrines. It's whether religious doctrines, political doctrines, philosophical doctrines, and etc. Next is utopianism. Utopianism, the main goal of this is to have a country without crime. In short, they want a peaceful and ideal country. Next is revolutionism. Revolutionism, the violent way of changing existing social relation, law, and order, and reinforcing them. Next is radicalism can manifest itself in various forms: nihilism, extremism, terrorism, and revolutionism. First, let's define what is nihilism. Nihilism, this is believing in nothing. You actually believe nothing. Next is extremism. Extremism, it is the political violence. Next is terrorism. Terrorism, as we all know, it is a violence against civilian in pursuit of political aims. And revolutionism, actually, it is a revolutionary act. Two types of radicalism that law enforcement bodies have to deal with. First is social radicalism. In social radicalism, it presupposes the recognition of the priority of the interests of social groups over the interest of society as a whole. In this case, this group can be formed from various reasons. For example, feminism is a kind of social radicalism formed on the basis of absolution of gender. Next is political radicalism. Political radicalism is the ideology of social extremism, involves over time into a developed political ideology, demonstrating the possibility of the flow of social radicalism into political radicalism and further into extremism. So, basically, it's a process from social radicalism into political radicalism and can be into extremism, which we said earlier that extremism, it is a political violence. So, the main meaning of this is political radicalism can be or also defined as political violence. Yun yung threats. That's the threats na ma-encounter ng mga police or our law enforcement. It stressed that radicalism or the radical activity can manifest itself in two forms. First, as an activity not related to the use of political violence. For example is the protest, unauthorized pickets, road blockage, planking, and etc. That is first form of the political radicalism. Next is secondly, as an activity which is based on the use of violence in various forms, like terrorism, genocide, mass repression, and etc. Radical criminology. Radical criminology evolves in the 1960s. Following the Marxist principle, radical criminologists brought an ideology bent to criminology, shifting focus away from individual responsibility in crime and towards society-wide issues. The mainstream of criminology is the focuses on theoretical explanation of the cause of criminal behavior and measurements of crimes. Radical criminologist argues that this focus on individual responsibility in crimes and subsequently punishment intended to deter individual from choosing crime serves the state's interest in repression. This blames on the individual, according to the radical criminologist, diverts attention away from the structural factors that causes crimes and allows those in power to not accept responsibility. As a result of criminologists, the general publics and the politicians hyper-focus on street crimes, and those in power are able to commit far greater criminal acts without fear of retribution. Identity fusion theory. So, let's define what is identity fusion theory. Identity fusion theory is the visceral sense of oneness with the group, distinction between the between the personal self and social self. It is a unique form of alignment with groups to which members experience a visceral sense of oneness with the group. This construct relies on the distinction between the personal self and social self. The personal self refers to the characteristics that make someone a unique individual. Example of that is being tall, old, intelligent, while the social self pertains to the characteristics that align the individual with groups. Example of that is American, fraternity, brothers, student council members, and etc. When fusion occurs, both the personal and social selves remains salient and influential, but the boundaries between them become highly permeable. Although the personal and social selves are joined together, they remain independently salient and agentic. In addition, fused person come to regard other group members as a family. They treat each other as a family and develop strong relational ties to them as well as ties to the collective. Therefore, fused persons are not just bound to collective, they develop a bond that ties them to the individual members of the collective. The four principles of identity fusion. First is agentic personal self. When we say agentic personal self, it is identity fused individuals become strongly connected and aligned with the group. They are assumed to maintain an active and agentic personal self even when the social self is activated. Consistent with this idea, activating the personal self by increasing psychological arousal or encouraging people to think about how they would react if they were personally threatened. Increased endorsement of extreme pro-group sacrifices. Next is identity synergy principle. The fact that the personal and social selves can be activated independently raises the possibility that they may combine synergetically to motivate pro-group's behavior consistent with this possibility. Studies have shown that the activation of either the personal self or social self amplifies the willingness of strongly fused person to behave in a pro-group manner. Next is the relational ties principle. It is the fusional or the fusion approach assumes the strongly fused person care not only about their collective ties to the group but also the relation with other members of the group. Indeed, strongly fused individuals feel kin-like bonds with other groups members, even ones with whom they maybe had little or no contact. Next is irrevocability principle. Irrevocability principle, it is the identity fusion approach, assume that once developed fusion will remain largely stable over time. This stability persistent even in varying situations. This is due to strong emotional beliefs and interrelationship experienced by the strongly fused individuals. And that's the end of the presentation, and this is the reference. The roots of education, always remember, the roots of education are bitter, but the fruits is sweet. From Aristotle. That's all. Thank you.